Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Talk Show. This podcast is dedicated to a growth mindset. You see, I believe that you know something that I don't know, and I also believe that you know something that I know something that you don't know. And the only way for each of us to both rise in our knowings is for us to sit in a room and share all the things. For those of you that are new to the show and love inspirational content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in.
We come to you every day with the best speakers, relationship coaches, spiritual mentors, trailblazers, business owners, authors, young hustlers, podcasters, entrepreneurs, fitness trainers, therapists, financial advisors, and more. We ask our guests one question. What do you know that I don't know? Get ready, because today's guest is about to change the way you view your world. This is Her Talk Show, hosted by Sabrina Victoria.
Today, for this episode of Her Talk Show, we have had over 500 women grace this stage, and we are adding another one to the list today. If you're watching us live, welcome. And if you're watching us on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay wherever you're at so we can send you some love. Either way, if you are watching this video, can you share it, please? We want to get more eyes and more ears on the awesome content that we are about to share. Her Talk Show is here to inspire you and have you thinking outside the box in no time. Today, I'm speaking with an amazing woman named Sabine Gedeon. Sabine is the founder of She Leads Network. I freaking love that. And host of the top-rated podcast, She Leads Now, focused on women in leadership and business with nearly 20 years experience centered around helping others advance in their professional and personal environments. Sabine has helped clients in startups and Fortune 500 companies grow and develop by breaking through their own mental limits, elevating their confidence, influence, and impact as leaders and change agents. Yes. So excited to have you here, Sabine. How are you?
I am well. Thank you, Sabrina. I am excited to be here as well.
I so thank you. I love women who understand the value of sharing, podcasting, speaking, and really allowing those who are stepping into their journey, instead of just floating around. They're really stepping into their journey, and to have women like you come on and give them a helping hand and guide them in a direction that resonates with them always helps. So thank you so much for taking some time of your day to hang out with us.
Oh my gosh, like what better way to spend my Friday besides spending it with you?
Yes, we were actually just talking about Fridays while we were here, for sure. Well, listen, one of the things that this podcast is all about is finding out what you know. What are the things that you know that you can share with us? I know that you talk a lot about who we are, what we believe in, values, how you show up in your world, how you're projecting to others. As a leader, how did you get into this sect of the importance of leading?
Yeah, great question, and thank you. And so I shared this with you before. So this started outside of, your traditional corporate or leadership. When I was 25, so I won't bore you with my background, but immigrant from Haiti, like grew up, all the T's, all the big T's and the little T's as it relates to trauma. And got to a place at 25 where I hit rock bottom, and I was done with life. And for me at that point and at that moment, it was too much. It was all of the stuff that I had been carrying and hadn't been processing. And so I wanted to say goodbye. I got to a place where, on my quote unquote final day, I decided to have a conversation with God. And I asked two things. Basically, I was just like, look, I could continue to endure and to bear if this is what life is, if I knew two things: one, that I had a purpose, and two, that you were real. And in that moment, I had an experience with God that no one can ever tell me like he's not real ever again. I literally felt the arms of God wrap himself around me. And I just knew in that moment that my prayer was answered, that he was real, and that I had a purpose. And so that started a journey. This is 15, 16 years in the making, actually. And what sparked for me the next day when I got up off the bed, or off the floor, actually, I was on the floor, was, okay, I'm going to figure out what my purpose is. And in knowing my purpose, that also meant I got to know who I am outside of all of the things that I had endured, outside of all of the labels, the identities, just striving, all of that stuff. And so, needless to say, it's taken 16 years. So it's not like it was a easy process, right? When you are undoing who you were, you think about the caterpillar turning into the butterfly. You're literally undoing an old identity and shedding most of who you are while you are catching glimpses of the brilliance that is you. And so that journey led me into a space where, obviously, in my corporate career, I was already supporting leaders. I was supporting individuals in their career advancement. When I left corporate America, that's what I decided I wanted to do: support leaders and those in career transitions. And then I had another, not nowhere near as bad as 25, but I had another experience where, once I left corporate and started out on my own, I had never felt so naked and alone. I guess that's the best way to put it. When I stepped into entrepreneurship, it was like everything that was more stuff, more layers of stuff kept coming up. And, when you're in entrepreneurship, I tell people all the time, it's the best personal development course you could ever take, because it forces you to look at you. You're building a business, or you're really projecting the essence of who you are through service offerings. And so it forces you to look at who you are. So I had to go back into the transformation chamber and identify those pieces. And then, as I was working with leaders, even when I was in corporate, one thing I noticed was, they would be the leaders who got results, but they left dead bodies, right, in the hallways, like those types of leaders. And at the same time, I would notice that once we were behind closed doors, they were human beings. They no cape, there was no bravado, they were vulnerable. And so I recognized in that moment that, what? So much of our lives is spent being who we think we need to be, or doing the things that we've seen modeled, or we think that there are expectations of us. But there are very few moments where I feel like we give ourselves permission, or society gives us permission, to just be who we are, and to be settled in that, and to really buy into that belief of, I am enough, and not the belief of, okay, I'll be enough when I get this. You do deal with a lot of type A high achievers. And so you're yourself, so that mindset. And so really, for me, as I observed myself in my own journey, as I observed my clients, as I observed, challenges in organizations, like, I got to the root of it, that a lot of what we face, or what we see as problems or challenges or obstacles in our lives, in business, in our corporate careers, is really based on the premise that, we're not aligned with who we truly are. Because until we are, everything it's like we're playing makeup, like when we are kids. And then when you look at what happened with the pandemic, not too long ago, about 3 years ago, everyone globally had a moment to stop and ask themselves, who am I? And am I being true to who that is in this career, in this marriage, in this whatever? And you started seeing people make really, really drastic changes in their lives, because they gave themselves the permission. Well, the pandemic forced them to, but they also did the work and made that decision. And now you see people living completely different lives. So that's where the whole premise around, like, really supporting people and getting to the root of that question, who am I? Because I think that is where we should be starting, so that it can inform, how are we building our businesses? How are we building our careers? How are we, rearing our children? Where do we live? Like, where do we choose to live? I just think that that's the foundational question, but it's also not an easy question to answer.
Yeah. And you're right. There were so many businesses. I feel like at least 50% of my networking calls are 2020 entrepreneurs. They jumped in at 2020, which is cool, I think that's awesome. I wanna ask, when you say, not aligned with who we truly are,
Mhm.
we have live listeners right now, they're obviously already resonating with what you're saying, they're hanging on, and, they may or may not understand what that means to align with who you are. How does somebody know if
Yeah.
they're aligned?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I will let me start it off with saying you will start to get hints that you're not aligned with who you are. When you get to a point like you see it, especially in corporate, right? People are miserable, or like they're just like, oh my gosh, I hate this job, I hate doing this, or I don't like this. They can't find joy in the thing that they're doing. Or if you have a friend group and you're looking to step into something different, and everyone around you is trying to keep you back and keep you safe, the signs that it's time for a trip into the transformation chamber, as I like to call it, is usually not like, oh, everything is going well. It's when everything is hitting the fan, or you get to a place where you get sick and tired of being sick and tired of whatever the existence is. And so, again, with the pandemic, obviously we were all stuck at home, so we had to do that work. But most of the time when I get my clients and they're like, you know what, I'm ready to do something else. Like, I'm so sick and tired of this. Whether they're, senior execs in a corporation or they're individuals making their transition, the pain of staying where they are is usually what the inkling is. Okay, something's off. I'm not aligned here. What usually happens is we assign some type of external attachment or meaning to what's causing the misalignment, right? So whether it's work, it's the business, it's hubby, it's wifey, or whatever the case may be, and really that's not the case. The trigger happened within us way long before we started looking externally at, okay, well, maybe things aren't working out. And so what I like to do with the clients is really getting back to the root of, okay, let's put aside all of these external things, right? I'm a firm believer that, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, right? So much of our lives is taught like, we're human beings having occasional spiritual experiences. But if you look at life from the perspective of, you're a spiritual being having a human experience, and this experience right now is uncomfortable, or this experience right now doesn't feel good, you're not going to solve it by just getting another job. You're just taking that same problem with you. You're not going to solve it getting in another relationship. It starts with you having to check in with yourself to say, okay, what's happening inside of me? What is my soul telling me? What is my heart telling me? And if you're a believer, what message is God trying to get to me right now? Because what was once comfortable is no longer comfortable, and I can't stay in this place, and I don't know what's next.
How does somebody check in and figure that out? You're saying, feeling, or how, like, do we meditate? Are we supposed to like sit in our car? Just while we're taking a shower?
Yeah. There's no one methodology, or if you will, for that. So I'll give you a perfect example. Not too long ago, I had made a decision to make some changes in my business. What triggered the change in my business was I found myself doing work that, yes, I could do it, but it no longer brought me to life. Like, it drained me. Like, I would literally get off of calls or stop doing the work and felt like, oh my gosh, I need a nap. And this went on for months, right? And I just kept ignoring it because in my mind, it was just like, just push through, Sabine. Like, this is just whatever, like, push through. This is a client, yada, yada, yada. And so I got to the point where I was just like, okay, I don't have any more push through in me. Okay. Like, something's got to give. And it forced me to go into this place of, okay, why doesn't this feel good anymore? Like, what is it about this that doesn't feel good anymore? And the messages, and this was over time, right? So this was in reflection, it was journaling, it was praying, it was, really just sitting with myself and examining like what's happening here. And I realized that there was an opportunity for me to step into entrepreneurship in a different capacity. But the work that I didn't want to do anymore is the HR consulting. But that's what my career in corporate was, right? So it was 14 years of that. And then I got into business and I was still doing that. And there was such a part of me that was tied to that identity of being an HR professional that I got to a point as I was moving, as I was advancing or becoming the next version of myself, I had to shed that version, the HR professional side. And so I'm not even gonna sit here and lie and say, oh, I got to that revelation and it was just like, oh, okay, all right, I'm shedding it and we're done. That's not what happened. I resisted. I resisted a little longer until it was just like, okay, now not only are you, not enjoying the work, but you're also attracting clients that you don't want to work with, Sabine. Like this is not it. And I went back to the thing. I was just like, God did not call me to be an entrepreneur so that I could create another job for myself. Like that's not what it was. So once I made the decision, I think that that's also step one, right? Once you come to the awareness that something is not working, you have to make a decision that you're going to do something different. I think the transformation, it's almost like it's the light switch. Your transformation begins the moment that you make the decision that what's happening today, the reality that I'm experiencing today, I no longer want to, or it's not going to work. And then you move forward. So once I made that decision to say, okay, I'm going to let this go, I started seeking clarity. Well, if not this, then what? What else is there? What have I been ignoring? And I started praying, like, bring into my awareness opportunities, whether it's in the day-to-day conversations that I'm having with people over Zoom, connections on LinkedIn. Like I became very intentional about seeking out opportunities that would give me glimpses of what was next and what was possible and what was my soul leading me to. Again, still journaling, still praying, still meditating. And then it became clear to me. And now you would think, oh, wow, this was it. No, now that it became clear to me, I had to fight off all of my imposter syndrome of why I wasn't capable, of why I wasn't ready, and go through that process. But at the same time, hold on to the trust that this would not have come to me at this stage in my life if I were not ready for it. And so maybe I can't see the full stairway, but I trust enough to know that if I'm on the wrong path, I'll get redirected real quick, whether I like it or not. And so after moving into that space of, okay, now I'm here, it was still uncomfortable. There was still a lot that I didn't know. And, that's the worst thing that you can do to a type A person, right? Is keep them in the dark and have them, not have all the answers, so to speak. And in that process, honestly, I had learned the power of surrender previously, in previous seasons of my life, but this level of surrender was a lot different. It wasn't just surrendering a business, right, or parts of my business. I was surrendering a huge part of myself that was my identity, that was rooted in how I saw myself, my self-worth, even. And so that process of surrender was a lot more painful, gruesome, if you will. But I walked through that. And so, I mean, I know this is real high level, but I wanted to point out, like, it's not this one linear process of once you make a decision to make a change, it automatically happens. You are literally transforming from the inside out and becoming this new person. And it's only when you become it in your mind, in your heart, in your spirit, that you will start to see it manifesting outwardly as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And being ready for that.
Yeah.
And open to it, I think is really important. I think sometimes we put walls up and we feel like we just create another box for ourselves. Kind of like what you were saying, you kind of create another job for yourself. Sometimes we create a little box. We pick something, whatever that is, we sit in a little box and we're not open to evolving, pivoting, maneuvering, expanding into, that could go for personal or business, really.
Yeah. Yeah. And quite honestly, the reason why we don't do it, I mean, obviously the subconscious mind is trying to keep us safe, and it's just like red alert, red alert, red alert, don't do it. But at the same time, we discount how great we are.
Yeah.
And I mean, women in particular do that, but I think human beings overall, we just discount how great that we are. And it's in those seasons, it's in those dark seasons, if you will, that I feel closer to nature, or I feel a lot more relatable to nature. Where if you look at nature, right, like the trees, they have to shed their leaves, especially if you're from the Northeast, right? They have to shed their leaves, right? And then it grows back. The beautiful plants that we plant, what people resist is the loss and moving through the grieving process, but then it's the pain of that period of unknown. I think that for me, if I had to look at the entire process, that's the period that hurts the most, because that's the period in where thoughts of I'm broken,
Yeah.
or thoughts of like, I don't know if this will ever work out or when this will ever end. And you just have to sit in the darkness and just trust that at some point a light will a light will beam, and you will have a pathway. And for people who like predictability, that's not an easy place to sit in and to trust in.
When you say sit and wait, is that actually sitting and waiting, or are we doing things while we sit and wait?
No, it's active. It is definitely an active sit and wait. Here's the thing. I would say the sitting and waiting is for complete clarity, right? Of whether it be the strategy or whatever the case may be, right? But you are taking action daily. And if you are, I don't know about those who are listening, but in order to grow, or as you grow, you're going to recognize that you need tools like affirmations, meditation, journaling, EFT, tapping, whatever the case may be. Like, we need those different, mechanisms to be able to support us on the emotional, the mental, the spiritual side of any type of external success or growth. And so it's in those moments when I say sit and wait, that's where you're kind of like, okay, I don't have the full staircase right now. Can I get can I get a glimpse of what the next step looks like? And then really going within yourself to find that answer, or working with a coach to help them pull that out. And then just focusing on, okay, this is the one step that I have clarity on, so this is the one step that I'm going to move forward with.
Perfect. I want to touch for a moment on practical strategies. I think that we're kind of going in that direction right now, the way that you explain that. It's very practical. People can see that, understand that, and act on that immediately. I'm wondering if you have any more strategies for elevating someone's impact when it comes to moving our mission or moving our organization, our business forward.
Yeah. One strategy that has worked for me tremendously, both when I was in corporate and as an entrepreneur, I've found, even for myself and even for clients, oftentimes when we're moving into a place, and a lot of my clients are women. I still support men, but for the most part, I work with women. There's this mindset that, like, okay, if I'm going to do the next thing, I got to be the one to figure it out, right? Like, I got to figure out all the pieces. I got to be the one to do it, and it's all on me. And what I've noticed over my career in supporting both men and women is that that's a self-imposed mindset that doesn't have to be. If we
Yeah.
look at our male counterparts, right? Like, they will act and then get the details and then figure it out. And not only will they act and then figure it out, but they will seek the support of others to be able to do it. One of the most the thing that I preach the most is really about building your social capital, and that's really building relationships. When I was in corporate, I have this fond name of an avatar of a gentleman called Bob, right? We were told, put your head down, do all the work, and you'll get recognized. That's not true, because meanwhile, Bob was advancing. And I learned very quickly that Bob learned something, or Bob was applying a strategy that I, as a first time generation, corporate, college, whatever, had not learned. And that was, you have to build relationships with people and get to the place where you are comfortable and vulnerable enough telling people what it is that you want to do next. And so the Bobs are the ones who are in the skip level meetings, like they're meeting with their managers. The Bobs are the ones at the golf course. The Bobs are the ones that are creating the relationships. We as women, because we are awesome and amazing and can do all things, think that we have to do all things. And that's not how it works. That's not the world. That's not the, way to success in entrepreneurship or anywhere else. We look at any athlete, we look at any superstar that we, admire, they have a team. Yeah. They have a team around them. And so the notion of, okay, well, I'm going to start a business. Oh, I'm a solopreneur. I'm small. I got to do all the things. That's what hurts us. That's what prevents us from being able to make the impact, because now we're spreading thin and we're doing the jobs of 5-10 people. And so a perfect example, when I moved out here to San Diego, I didn't know anyone. Started the business, left corporate, didn't know anyone. My first thing was I got on LinkedIn and I started reaching out to all the HR professionals. And I was just like, hey, I'm new here. I'm a consultant. My background's in HR. Would love to get to know you. Or would love to connect with you. And when they responded, it was just like, hey, this is back when people did coffee chats a lot. Would you like to meet up for coffee? Would you like to meet up for lunch? And I started to learn, and there was no motive there. I wasn't trying to sell them anything. I wasn't expecting anything from them. But it was more so of, let me get to know who's in my surrounding. Let me figure out what they got going on. Let me share with them what I have going on. And then down the road, if an opportunity becomes available, maybe that's someone I can refer, or they can refer me. The thing that I think I'm good at really is building relationships, meaning that I'll connect with people on LinkedIn if I'm focused on something, but then I have a cadence. Literally, one of my folders back there is my relationships folder. So every quarter, like I'm actively reaching out to people in my space, and let's debunk that whole notion of competition, right? Yeah. There's no competition. There's enough for 100. Every single one of us. And no matter if somebody is an executive coach, right, their unique brilliance is going to look different than mine. So I don't see it that way. So I, just last quarter, my thing was I was reaching out to other coaches, other HR consultants, other people in the space that I play in. Why? Some of them have been doing this longer. Maybe they know some tips and tricks that I can bypass. I have a network of, podcasters. And so I know that people in business are always looking to promote their business, right? Like that's a value that I can add. And so I just started reaching out and just saying, hey, would love to connect. Got on the calls. I've learned about different assessments. I've learned about different methodologies. I've been able to connect people that I met with, resources and other people that they need. That's not turning back a monetary return for me right now in the moment. But when you think about building social capital, especially in the time that we're in right now with, the market downturn, when the financial capital is tight, that is all the more reason for you to refocus your time on your social capital. You should always have a plan for networking, always have a plan for relationship marketing, if that's what you want to call it. But build relationships with people who are in your space, build relationships with people who are out of your space, and then and when I say build relationships, don't just add them on LinkedIn and think that that's enough. No, circle back. Hey, how's it going? Is there a resource that I can share with you? People remember that. And then this last thing I'm going to say, someone referred someone to me last year. It was last year timing. I did an introductory call with this person. It was another business. They weren't ready to move forward. Like I did my once a quarter thing. Hey, how's it going? Checking in. Nothing. Literally, just a few weeks ago, I did my check-in and it was just like, this is perfect timing, Sabine, like, because we have this need and this need and this need and this need. And so it was just like, she was just like, thank you so much for like staying in touch. She was like, I remembered you, like you were in the back of my mind, but the fact that you've always kept in touch and you just check in. And I wasn't checking in for business. It was just, how are you doing after the holidays? It was just like, how are your holidays? So I say all that to say that it pays off. It's not going to be an immediate client, but people people do business with people that they know, like, and trust. If you're in business and you're trying to grow your business, start with growing relationships, genuine, mutually beneficial relationships, and your business will grow.
Absolutely. I always joke that we're told most of our lives growing up that we shouldn't be talking to strangers. And I joke that strangers have everything that we need.
Yeah.
I mean, everything that we have is from a stranger.
Right.
And if it wasn't for connections, we wouldn't have what we have. So, people connecting, networking is absolutely everything.
Yeah.
And, I love the way you do business. I think that more people need to learn how to do business like that. One of the things that I tell my community is the importance of teaching people how to network by being the lead in that, because people don't really know how to do it correctly, where both people are benefiting from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And even the way we met, right? Like, I randomly reached out to you on LinkedIn and then goofed on our meetings. And then someone else that I connected with, it was just like, oh, you got to know Sabrina. And it was just like, yep, I got to know Sabrina. So it just, there's a gift in it. And I think for us as women, if we look at building a business as something that is collaborative, we need support. Yes, we need our coach. Yes, we need, our staff, but we need other people who are in that space to help uplift us and to open doors for us that we wouldn't otherwise be able to open our doors for ourselves. And then to be in the room, to have people who are in the room when we're not in that room that, will mention our names. Oh, I have one more example. Just earlier this week, I went to a networking event. And it was a room of women I did not even know, for the most part, like, besides the one woman who invited me there. And as I'm going around, I ended up at this table with this lady, and she was just like, oh, I know you on LinkedIn. Like, I follow your work or whatever. And I learned what it is that she does. And I was just like, oh, well, do you ever bring in people for workshops for your group? She was like, matter of fact, for Women's International Month or Women's History Month, I recommended you for an opportunity, but they ended up going somewhere else. And this is someone that, again, we've been connected. I've never had a conversation with. And here it is June at the time of this recording. Come to find out, back in March, she was mentioning my name in a room for an opportunity. So there's power in this, and looking at this as building relationships.
Absolutely. Yes. I want to ask, the title of this podcast is called The Only Question That Matters. What's the question?
Who am I?
Ooh, okay.
Who am I? It is by far the hardest question to answer, followed by what do I want? We all think that we know that answer, but most of us don't, right? Like, we might say, oh, what do you want? Oh, I want $1 million business. No. What do you want? What does that $1 million business mean? But before you even get to what you want, you start with, who am I? And I've shared this before, when I ask my clients this, it's usually, well, I'm the senior vice president of da 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 da, or, I'm the CEO and founder of this, that, and the third. Okay, cool. Who are you? Well, I'm a mom. I have 2 kids and da 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 da. I'm a husband. Okay. And I let them go through all of the identities, right? All of the roles that they play. Who am I? And it gets real silent. It gets real uncomfortable. Because once all the labels, all the identities, all the roles are, most of us can't answer that question. And that's not a bad thing. I think being able to get down to that layer where you have that awareness that you can't really answer that question, that's where you get to build from. That's where you get to go on that journey of, wow, who am I?
Have you answered that for yourself?
Ooh, girl, I ask that every season of transformation. For me right now, if you were asking me that question, I guess you're asking me that question. My answer is, I'm a reflection of God. I'm a reflection of him in every interaction that I have, right? I want people to see him. I want people to hear him. I want people to feel the reflection, or to see the reflection of who they are. through me. So when I say, who am I? Or when I answer that question, it's almost like, who is God, right? And God is whoever he needs to be to whoever is seeking in that moment. And so that's who I am.
Beautiful. The first word that came to mind for me was connector. But is that still an identity?
It is. It's because it's something that I do. And so when you get to who am I, who are you being? Like, what is your being? Like what my prayer is always like, each one of us has work that our soul, right? Our spirit came into the world to do. That's whatever that is, that's going to be reflected. So let me give you an example, right? So we're speakers, right? So that's how we share our gift, through speaking. We share our gift through, supporting others through coaching. We share our gifts, but what's the real thing of our being? Our beings are people who want to heal or heal, if you will, right? At the essence of who we are, we're healers. We just do it in different, they're just different methodologies in which we express it, in which it manifests.
Yeah. I like all of that. That makes sense, for sure.
Do you have your answer?
No.
No. Okay.
Yeah, I would need to think on that a little bit. I feel like I have done that work previously. I went through the landmark curriculum. I don't know. Okay, cool.
Yep.
And I feel like that might have come up at that point, but that was 10 years ago now. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I love that for sure.
And you can start with just looking at if obviously that's a big question, right, to ask, and you're not going to get it in like 30 minutes, but look at it from the standpoint of start with your values. What do I value? What's important to me? Like, so there are levels to help you get to that start. But the first place that I take my clients is, let's start with your values then. Because at the end of the day, your values, whether you recognize them or not, they are informing, or they should inform, how you show up. Whether it's in business, whether it's in your relationships, what are your non-negotiables? So, for those who are listening or for who are watching live, if you can't answer that question yet, that's okay. You're in a good place. Start with, what are your values? And be honest with yourself and be okay with that. And then as you move through this process, like any other process of transformation, you will get to that answer. If you continue to seek that answer, you will get that answer.
Yeah. I think that's the key, is continuing to seek. Because it's easy to have conversations like this with people, friends, colleagues, partners, and get excited.
Yep.
And then forget about it.
Yeah.
So when you're continuing to dip into conversations like this, reading books, listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos, getting on the panels, going to events, going to retreats, and it's a consistent thing that you're working on year over year after year, year over year over year. I think that's when it starts to really reveal itself to us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know you've been on your journey for a while. Like, mine now is like 16 years in the making, and it's still a process.
Yeah, definitely. We have quite a few people watching live. Thank you so much for being here and hanging out with us. We appreciate you spending some time with Sabine and I. For those of you watching on the replay, if you could hashtag replay wherever you are at, so we can send you some love. But I want to ask, obviously people are resonating with you. They're here, they're hanging out. Can you tell us what exactly you do and who should be reaching out to you? Who do you help?
Yeah, thank you for that. So She Leads Network is a well, it's not an organization, but it's a think about it as an executive forum. So it's a mastermind type organization or platform for women who are in traditional corporate environments, who are looking to advance their careers and really build on their leadership skills, but more importantly, have a safe space to collaborate, to come together, Obviously, I'm big on networking, so it's my opportunity to teach women how to really, accelerate their progress, accelerate their success through the power of networking and being around like-minded individuals. In addition to that, I do also work with organizations and I support them in the capacity of executive coaching, or creating professional development or leadership development programs to help them, advance their internal talent.
And where can people find you? Where do you predominantly hang out on social media?
I know this is going to be a shocker, but LinkedIn. I live on LinkedIn, so please feel free to connect. It's Sabine Gedeon, all one word. I try to be better about my inbox, but sometimes it gets a little crazy. So please feel free to send me a message. Let me know you heard me on the show, so I could definitely shout you out. And here's a pro tip, right? Don't just click the connect button or don't just click the follow button. Click that personalized button and just say, hey, Sabine, heard you on the Her Talk Show or saw you chatting with Sabrina, would love to connect. That allows you to be memorable in my mind. That immediately builds, this is our connection. And then that also, it's not just some random person who is reaching out. And so, as on the messaging thing, it keeps the stream. So as we build our relationship, I can always go back and say, okay, this is how we met. This is how we connected. So just a little tip there. And please do that for everybody that you want to connect with on there.
Yes, 100% agree. I always tell my community our goal as a community, entrepreneurial females, is to talk to at minimum one stranger a day. That's like our minimum, and that's what creates the expansion in our network and our business for us to be able to continue to, have goodness flow into our businesses. What is your big dream for She Leads Network?
Oh, I wanted to. So, if people who are listening, if you're familiar with, networks like Chief, for women, and even networks like Vistage and some of these other out there, like to support, and obviously these support entrepreneurs and people in professional. But I just want to create a space where people can be the winners, right? They can be the type A, they can be the ones, but when they come into this community, they feel seen, they feel heard, and they feel supported. Because you can't really be winning without having those. And most of us who do that, we end up in that place of burnout. And having been there, I want to create the space for that. And so whether I would love to say, I want to help 1 million women, and like, yes, of course I would. But more importantly, it's that that when you come into this space, this is a safe space, and that you get to be who you are, and you get to have people around you that can help reflect back to you who you are.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate you and everything that you're doing for your community and all the women out there. Any closing thoughts?
No, thank you so much for having me. I just want to say this publicly, right? I fangirled over you when we first met, but you are truly an inspiration. And it's funny that, we've never met in real life and we live across the world, or I say across the world, I mean, I'm California, but it feels like across the world at times. And just watching and hearing your story, I immediately resonated, and I see your heart and the heart that you have to help women just be who they are, really, and step into the unique brilliance that makes them who they are. And so thank you so much for creating this platform. Thank you so much for taking what you experienced and turning it into a gift to the world, and inviting people like me to be able to share in that. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you for being here. Thank you for those of you watching live. Thank you for those of you watching on the replay. If you connected with Sabine and all the goodness that she shared today, make sure that you connect with her. She predominantly hangs out on LinkedIn. Her website is sheleadsnetwork.com. It is in a clickable link in the description wherever you are watching us at. Make sure you connect. We'd love to connect people here on this platform in order to make sure that we all continue to rise. Thank you so much for joining us here. This community is expanding every single day and is filled with females who are striving to do better than they did yesterday. For those of you that are new to this podcast and love content like this, make sure you follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire others.